this new video in our series API Payment Integration with Paystack. In this video, we'll be handling errors in our Express application. Error handling is a major part of app development. It refers to the process of how our app reacts to errors that occur both synchronously and asynchronously. Although Express ships with a default error handler that writes to the stack trace containing basic information about the error. In this video, we define our error handling middleware function in the same way as other middleware functions, but it would have 4 arguments, which are error, request, response, and next. So let's dive right in. In the entry point of our application, we will define this middleware at the end of our middleware function stacks, that is after all the app.use and routes, right? So that will be right here. I have app.use, error of type error, request of type request, response of type response, and next of type next function. I just import this of type from Express. So next I'll return a response with a status of 400, that's a bad request, and send that with a success JSON attribute of false and a message with the error message. Thanks. So let's try this in the base route. Let's throw an error. So the base route here, I'll just throw new error with a message of user not found. I'll save this and then we'll try this on Postman to see how it plays out. We'll go to Postman, but before we do that, we need to start our app. So I'll go to the terminal here and run npm run dev to start our application. So once our app is started on port 3000, we'll move to Postman and then we'll hit that endpoint. So we'll hit the base endpoint here and then we'll have our error formatted nicely. So wouldn't it be nice to have more precise status code for different error cases? To do this, we can create custom errors by extending our error class, the main error class, and adding specific properties like status code and reflecting that in our error middleware handler. Before we get into creating this custom error class, let's install a small utility library called HTTP status codes, which provides constant enumerating the HTTP status codes in order to make our code cleaner and a little more readable. So we'll stop our app here and run npm install HTTP status codes. Next, to create a new file. Well, instead of creating a new file directly in our source folder structure, we can add that to a new utils folder instead. So I have API error just to structure our code a little. Test. Next, to create that new class, error class, that will extend the main error class. So we'll export it. Export class API error, which extends the error, and here we'll have a property, an attribute called status code, like we mentioned earlier, with a type of number. Next, we can have our constructor that receives status code, which is a number, and a message, which will be the error message of type string. Here we can call our super class here with the message, which is this main error class now. So we'll call it here to initialize it before we go ahead to make modifications to the API error class. So here we can say this dot status code. Here we're setting this status code, right, to equal the one we passed into from the constructor status code. Good. So we can save this, and we will now make use of this custom error in our error handler middleware and return the appropriate status code based on the error. So move back to here. So in our error handler, right, we're going to make some changes to it. So instead of passing a hard-coded 400 here, we're going to pass status code. So we're going to create a new constant, status code, which will be equal to error dot. Okay, so we need to first of all change this error type here to API error, right, instead of just the error, since we've extended the main error class here that contains our status code. Here we can now have dot status code here. Or in a case where we don't have that status code, we want to default to a 500, so we can have make use of the utility package we installed. This is HTTP status. Here the statuses, status code, and then we can see let's say internal server error. So to default to internal server error, or we'll return the status code we passed in earlier. So we'll save this. Next we need to modify the error throwing here in order to test and see how it comes out. Here we can now see API error, and we can pass a status code of 400 here. Then we save this. So let's run our app again, npm run dev, and then we'll try that out in Postman. So switching over to Postman, I'll hit send. Yes, I'll have our error properly formatted with 400. We can try that with the 500, with the 401 to see. So I'll move over here and turn this back to 401. I save this, come back here, and then I hit. So you see we have 401, which works nicely now. So we can go a step further to modify our API error class, right, to include stack trace and other properties to hold more specific details of the error. I will leave that out for now in order to focus on getting to the goal of this series, which is payment integration. However, we can, for this video, extend the API error to create two specific error classes of not found error and bad request. So let's modify this. So here we can have another one, export class not found error, which extends API error. Here we can have a constructor that receives just one parameter, the path, the route path, that return this error. And we can have call our super here with this super now refers to API error, which receives status code and message, right? So we'll go ahead and add our status code. Status codes dot, since it's a not found error, we have a not found error code here, which is neatly defined, and then we'll have our message. So here I'll use a template string, and so I can interpolate the path we're passing in. So we'll have the requested path, passing the path here, was not found. I'll save this. There was a typo here. I had R, missed R. Nice. Thank you, VS Code. I'll close it so that I can see it in one glance. Next, I'll create the second error class, which is bad request. So we're going to still export it. Class bad request error, which extends API error. Now have our constructor. Here we'll just receive only the message, which is going to be a string. And we'll call our super, which expects a status code. So for bad request, it's going to be a bad request status code, and here we'll have our message. Then we'll save this. So since we have defined more specific error classes like the bad request, we can change this to a bad request error and see how that turns out. So we can say bad request error, and then since this receives only a message, because it's more precise now, we know this exact status code for bad request, it should be 400. We can go back to Postman and try this out now. So I move to Postman and I hit this endpoint. Right, nice. So we have 400 here and nicely formatted error. Our index file looks a little rowdy, right? So I'll just go ahead and move this error handler function into a middleware class, and then bring that back in here and clean it up. So I'll do that behind the scenes and come back and show us how I did that. So as you can see, I have cleaned up the index file. It looks a little more leaner and clean. I'll just remove this unused export import here. Right, save this. So it looks a little more cleaner. Here we'll have the app.use error handler.handle. So I'm calling a static function here, and here I also have this app.use true new not found error with the request path. So this is also a middleware I've added at the end of our route, right? So that receives it's like a fallback route handler for any path that was not found, right? So it throws that particular error. So of not found, here I can have my handler. So I just go into the handler class and just an exact copy from the route. So I just copied it and dropped it here, and yeah, so just to make our code a little more defined. Yeah, so I can go ahead and test on Postman. So if I still hit this endpoint, it gives me the right message, and then if I go to a part that doesn't exist, like unknown, I hit, so I get this. If I move to another part, payment, right, that doesn't exist, I hit that, I still get this requested path. This was not found with a 404 error. So thank you for staying tuned on this video. In this video, we have been able to show and implement error handling with Express application. So thank you very much. I hope this was really useful. I'll see you in our next video. Kindly subscribe, like, share, and turn on post notification to get notified when we post new videos, and encourage the channel to create more feature focused contents.